So every once in a while, YouTube comes through for me. And this time it came through as an audio YouTube. And I was sent it a while back. Actually, I couldn't tell you when, but I resurrected it sort of the last couple of weeks. And it's had 5.5 million hits. And I swear to you, the last million are probably my own. I really get a kick out of it. In this story, let me set it up, but before I even do that, some of you guys in the very corner over here might need to squish that away a little bit because we're going to project just 34 seconds worth of something on that wall. As long as you're okay, you're okay. You can sit on the floor too, but I just want you to be able to see it. Okay, so there's this guy driving to work, right? And he's late for work because it starts raining and traffic is slowed down. And while he's on the phone talking to one of his colleagues, he witnesses a minor accident right in front of him. He goes, whoa, whoa. I mean, this whole thing is live as he's singing him, whoa, whoa. And this accident happens right in front of him. This guy runs a red light and hits this little car and spins it around. And this guy discovers that there's 4 old ladies in this car that gets hit. Then the guy who ran the red light to hit this car, he gets out of his car. He's got a cigarette in his mouth and a white T-shirt on. He gets out of his car and makes his way over to these little old ladies in their car, gesturing as if this whole thing were their fault. The little old lady driving, when he gets to her window, sprays him with peppercorn spray. He hits the ground on his knees. She gets out of her car, grabs an umbrella, and starts beaming this guy on the head with her umbrella. She's poking him like this thing is a cattle prod. And then another lady gets out of the backseat of the car and takes this hard-covered, huge Bible and bangs this guy right over the head. And the guy telling the story is recounting this as it happens. He's laughing uncontrollably at this point. And he describes this old lady pummeling the man as this 4-foot-nothing woman. And again, this guy just can't stop laughing at this whole thing. So we pick up, with just 34 seconds, the very end of that phone conversation. To me, that is the laughter of God. And God is not laughing because of the violence in this scene, even if it's from a little old lady. I don't think God would have much of that. But God is laughing. God is laughing with delight at the little one winning. The little one winning. The feistiness of the little old lady, that little Mother Goose lady, as he talks about her, reminds me so much of the widow in the gospel story you just heard. Feisty little old lady. This woman was in a position of total powerlessness in the gospel story. Total powerlessness, awful powerlessness. Widows in Jesus' day, first century Palestine, were among society's weakest members. This is a man's world she was living in. Women were treated as nothing more than the property of men. The property of their fathers until they got married, and the property of their husbands after. And in a merely subsistence economy, without any social safety nets, a woman whose husband had died was vulnerable and destitute. And someone is withholding this widow's sole means of support. And the truth is that if she is unable to vindicate her rights, she will starve to death. The judge she goes up against is in a position of power. Jesus tells us something about this judge. He respects neither God nor any human being. He could not be moved by compassion or duty or even threats to his reputation. Everything in this corrupt system was working against this widow. But this woman ain't given up. She first appears in court, and the court officials doubtlessly explained to her that she could not be heard in court until she paid her fees. And those fees went straight into the pockets of those demanding them. When the widow tells them she's too poor to pay, they just ignore her. Yet she came back, and she came back again, and she came back the next day, and the next day, and the next day. Given the character of this cold judge and this woman's place in her society, anybody hearing this story would have expected that this is not going to turn out well for this woman. Not at all. But here comes the surprise. After days, maybe weeks, this widow suddenly achieves the breakthrough. Somehow she finds this chink in the armor, this seemingly impregnable armor of indifference with which this corrupt judge has covered himself. So not out of any sense of justice, but simply for his own convenience and to silence this public nuisance in his courtroom, he gives in and he grants her that for which she had longed and worked for so long. And the way Jesus describes this would have made the crowd around him laugh. He has this powerful judge saying, "This widow is wearing me out. She's going to end up hitting me, doing me violence." This picture is so ludicrous. Jesus is highlighting one of the weakest members of society, taking down a man of virtually unlimited power. The impact of this story is that in an almost cartoonish way, this little old widow lady, this little old Mother Goose woman, demonstrated herself the upending of the old power structures and the inauguration in her little old self, the inauguration of a new world order. This little old lady with zero power, both as a woman and because she has neither husband nor money, turns out to be the powerful one. This scene is the beginning of the new world God is giving us. This little scenario between a powerful judge who holds in his hands the fate of this powerless widow, now giving in to her, becomes for the world and for generations after that scene a sign of the inbreaking of God. What Jesus is demonstrating is that whenever the reign of God is coming true, is being realized, whenever, wherever that happens, the state in which the normal world abides will be turned upside down. Where God reigns, where love reigns, Jesus is saying, the oppressed claim their rights, often in surprising ways. In a world where God reigns, the victims become victorious. In a world where God reigns, the powerless become powerful. Remember back to the beginning of this same gospel by Luke. The very beginning. The first words of another powerless woman that she spoke. She who had no man to validate her or provide for her. When she found out that she was pregnant. Mary. Do you remember what Mary said in that moment of utter powerlessness and potential shame? She breaks into this marvelous prayer. The proud are confused in their inmost thoughts, she prays. The mighty are toppled from their thrones. The lowly are raised to high places. The hungry are fed. And the rich are sent empty away. Jesus lived that reality. He incarnated in his own life and his own way of relating to people. And he proclaimed it. And standing there in that proclamation as he was living, he dares us with a question, dares us to faith. He says in this gospel, at the end of the story, will not God then do justice to his chosen who cry out to him day and night? Will he delay long over them, do you suppose? And the question has its answer in that little old widow lady. His question has an answer. But the question we're left with, you and I, is, do we believe this? Do we believe it? Can we trust his plan for the world to be coming true? Will we align ourselves with this values of this kingdom he proclaims? That's what is behind Jesus' most poignant closing question of this gospel. When he looks out at all those around him and at us tonight, and he says, tell me, will the truly human one find faith on this earth when he comes again? Well, will he? This is where you and I come in. We too live in a time of many injustices and corrupt systems. The oppressed are not far from us on any given moment, in any given place. You do not have to look far to find someone oppressed. The invitation for you and for me is to trust that the reign of God has begun and to align ourselves with it when we see it happening around us. The reign of God, a world of justice and of compassion, has begun. It takes faith to believe this. It takes faith to believe in this budding new thing that God is up to in this world. Yet come true it will. And in many ways and in many places, it is already happening. It happened when that big guy got in the face of that little old lady, and she got right back into his. And it happened 2,000 years earlier when that little bitty powerless widow woman got in the face of that powerful male judge. My friends, the time is short. It is urgent that we decide to trust this reality now. It is time now to align ourselves with its values, especially to make sure we stand with the small ones of this world, to make sure we got the backs of the defenseless and the humble and the weak and the picked on. And to stay true to that, however long it takes for this to turn around, to stay true to that. To stand with mercy and kindness when we see it, over arrogance and cold hearts. To stand with the generous and the humble when we see it. And all those things of God, however small it seems that the odds of their survival will be. Over any system of power that maintains my way of life or anyone else's at the expense of another. Yes, my friends, it is true. We can count on it, we can believe in it, we can act on it. Yes, it is true. The transformation of the world has begun.